A feature is an asynchronous event, for example, a call to a database, and it takes time for that request to go out over the network, get the data, and return it back to you. Now, there's two things you need to account for: the delay between seeing that data, and sometimes there could even be an error. Nice thing about RiverPod is it handles those states for you. So let's go ahead and create a future provider. I'm going to name this one message provider. Now we're just going to be returning a string just like before. But the thing we're going to do here is we're going to do a future delayed with a duration of 3 seconds. Actually make it 5 seconds. So what this function does is we're going to wait 5 seconds before actually giving the string back. And then we're going to return a message from the future. So we're just faking the delay because if we didn't fake it, it might happen too fast. We might not even see the loading state. And in general, it's the same exact concept as going to a database, taking time before coming back and actually getting that message. So our future provider is defined here. If we go back to the main now, we want to display this future provider. And we're going to have a message for this one. And just like the normal provider, we're going to do ref, but instead of read, we're going to do watch. And we're going to watch the message provider. Now, here's where it differs a little bit from the previous provider. That was just normal. The future provider handles those 3 different states that I said: the actual getting data, a potential error state, and a loading state. So to get those, you do period and then when. And there you go. All of them pop up. So for the data part, we get past the actual, let's call this message. And if we actually have the data, we could just return that message. An error state gives us the error and the stack trace of it. But for us, we can just return a text that says error. And then with the loading state, we can return a text that says loading. And see, I refreshed it. It's loading for 5 seconds. And there we go, a message from the future. So if we rerun this application, and actually let me change this up a little bit to make it a little cooler. Instead of returning always a text, we're going to return a text for the message, text for the error, but in the loading state, we're going to return a circular progress indicator. Okay. Now, if we refresh, you'll see where you get a little spinner when it's loading. It should load for 5 seconds, and then we should retrieve our message. Perfect. When you're just writing code and you're using futures all over the place, it can sometimes be hard to remember, or maybe just a little reminder whenever you use a future provider that you have to deal with these right when you write it. And in this case, we actually have to make sure we use the ref.watch, because let's say if we change it to read and save it and reload this application, it's just going to read that once. And the first time it reads it, it's going to be in a loading state, and it's never going to read that loading state because we don't get the information after 5 seconds, and we're not watching for any changes within our future. So if we change it back to watch, it should all work now. That's a regular provider. That's a future provider. A string provider is actually very, very similar. It has the same loading and error states, but these obviously get updated more because they can be strings and you can get that data continuously coming through. So those are the basic providers that just give data down your widget tree. Now we have the full state management solution using state notifier providers.